We are already at the 100th release of Chrome, which is awesome. However, that means that once again, my Chromedriver based scripts have all broken. So there is a way to obviously update the Chromedriver. They're very good about having a file ready for us to download. The problem is I have to then go find the right file, download it, unzip it, do all that stuff. Let's automate this. All right, so as background for this project, I've got an article that I will link down below with all of the links that you'll need to refer back to in this process. We've got the blog here that goes step by step through things in case you need a refresher. If you get lost, you can always go copy the code straight from here. But otherwise, you should be able to follow along with this tutorial and just copy what I do on the screen. There are some things I want to show you really fast because this is what the process is to make sure you have a Chromedriver that works with Selenium. You go to chromedriver.chromium.org. I will have that link below as well. You usually will have to go through this list and find the one that matches your current Chrome version. And then what you're really trying to get to is this page right here where you can choose which file matches the system that you're on. So I think that using a shell script is going to be the best case scenario for us today. And so I have stepped out some of the steps that I know we need to go through in this file already. You can go ahead and open up a new file and call it whatever you want to. .sh is the extension. This first line here is just going to be your boilerplate, so we just want to make sure that the computer knows that this is a shell script. You can find this actually if you go into your terminal and type in which shell, and this is a variable that is held on your computer, and it will tell you, actually mine is ZSH because I have the Z shell as my default shell. So choose whichever one it is that makes sense for your system, and you're going to put that there in that first line. All right, so we know what the basic strategy is for us to be able to get things done with this process. The first thing we need to do is actually find out what our Chrome version currently is, because that does change which file we want to go to, which page we want to go to. There can be multiple files for the same main version, like maybe there's 99.2 and 99.8, and those do matter. And so you want to choose the one that best fits the version that you're on currently. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use the computer to find this out for us so we don't have to go in and click on a bunch of buttons just to find out what version we're running. What I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to create a Chrome version variable that's going to hold this because we're going to need this several times later. Now there's actually a couple of things that we have to do just to get the Chrome version, and we're going to go through those on the terminal first just so you can see what's going on, and then we're going to chain them all together so that we can accomplish this in one step and set all of this stuff into the Chrome version. Alright, so the first part of getting this Chrome version is we actually need to locate our Chrome app. And so wherever you've installed it, most likely you've put it in the applications folder on a Mac, and it should be right in here. Go ahead and locate that wherever it is. Make sure it's selected in your Finder. Hit Command Option C, and then we're going to go back into our terminal. And I'm going to start out with double quotes here and paste in what we've got. And this is only a partial path so far. So what we need to do is add one more little section here. We're going to add a slash contents with a capital C slash, contents plural, and then slash Mac OS are capitalized slash Google space Chrome. And then we are going to close the path there. And the reason why is because there are spaces here in between Google Chrome twice. Now, it shouldn't matter wherever you've got it ahead of here. If it wasn't in the applications folder, it should work wherever you've saved it, as long as you start here and add the rest of this to the end. So that should hopefully help you out if it's not in your standard applications folder. We're going to hit the -- version, and this is the flag that's going to tell us what version of Chrome we currently have on our computer. So I'm going to hit enter, and awesome, we get this whole line here that tells me that I am on 100 blah blah blah. So we've got our version, right? The problem is we have a bunch of other words that are kind of getting in the way. So if I were to set this as a variable right now, it wouldn't start with the actual version. The numbers is what we need. It would start with Google. And so we want to cut out all of that stuff so that we can just focus on the actual numbers. If I were to run the same thing, I'm hitting the up arrow to go back to that same command, but now I can actually do something cool called piping, which is going to basically take whatever is output from this first command, and we're going to send it to something else that can help us cut out some of that detail that we don't need. And it's actually called cut. Now we know we want to cut this output right here up into parts because we want to get rid of some of it, right? But we can use what's called a delimiter, which is going to say, hey, I want you to slice this up on a certain type of character. So if we look at this string, we can see we've got some spaces here, and there's no spaces inside of the actual numbers. So this is a great way for us to choose something to cut on. So I'm going to say that our delimiter, using the -d flag, is going to be on that empty space. And the reason why we're just going to chop up this string, it's going to turn into 3 parts because there's actually 2 spaces here. So we're going to have Google, Chrome, and then the version, but that's okay because we can select specifically this last part. And what we're going to do in order to do that is actually using the flag -f. So the -f allows us to be able to select which section of this final string after it's been cut on these spaces, which section do we want to keep. And we could do a range, or we can say, hey, you know what? I only really want this third field, so I'm going to choose F3. If I were to hit enter, you can now see that it has actually cut off the first field, the second field, and now we are on the version, which is awesome. So if we reference back to the guide that Chromedriver has given us to be able to find out which version we want to use, we can actually find out that we don't even need this entire version string. We actually only want the first 3, these first 3 sets of numbers. So we don't want this .60 here in my case. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hit the up arrow to grab that last action, and we want to cut one more time. So we're actually going to use again this pipe. So we're saying, hey, we grab the full version with the name and everything. We're passing it into this utility called cut. We're taking that third section, and now we're going to cut it one more time. We're going to pass that one more time back into the cut utility, and we're going to use the delimiter of the period because those are the characters that we can make slices on. And again, we can choose what part of this string do we want to keep and which parts do we want to throw away. So I'm going to use the -f again because we're selecting the first 3 fields, and this time we're going to use a range. So we want the first field, right? We want the second, and we also want the third. So we can actually use the -3 to say I want 1 through 3, and then ignore whatever else comes after that. So we can hit that again one more time, and now we can see it is chopped off that .60 because then we can find out which version of the Chromedriver we want to use for our specific Chrome instance on our computer. I know that's kind of confusing, but what we're doing here is basically grabbing the version that we have on our computer, matching it to the range of acceptable versions for a specific Chromedriver, and then we're going to have it tell us which Chromedriver that is that we need to download. So the last thing we have to do here is we're going to take all of this stuff that we have just done, because now we've done all this work to get this number, right? So we might as well take all of this, and instead of saving the Chrome version that needs to be then converted into the Chromedriver version, we're actually just going to do this all in one step. So I'm going to pipe this one more time because we want to take this version and we're going to put this into what's called Xargs. And what this allows us to do is be able to actually just pass in what we've taken into our curl call so that we don't have to make another variable, pass that into a curl call. So let's just take care of all of this stuff. I know it's getting to be pretty complicated and very messy code here as far as like a lot of commands all strung together, but honestly I think this is just simple enough to just copy, and we can see that it works at each step as we're adding things on. So I am going to use the -I flag, and then a curly brace opening and closing. They're going to be empty. What this is preparing us for is to be able to put that variable into a URL, which is what we're going to do right here. Curl is going to be our command line utility that can go to a website and grab a response from that website, from that URL. And it is also going to be the thing that allows us to download, which is really cool. So type in curl, we're going to hit another space, and then what we're going to do is we're going to copy in this string of text, which again you can find on the blog post, but right here it is https://chromedriver.storage.googleapis.com/ in all caps latest _release _ and then we're going to put these curly braces again. So what this is saying is these curly braces mean grab whatever is in here. That's going to be our temporary variable that's going to be put at the very end, because normally you would have to type out 100.0. whatever at the very end of this URL right here. So instead of doing that, we can just have Xargs take care of that. So Xargs is going to take the version number that we've chopped up so nicely. It's going to set it as this little curly brace placeholder variable, and then we're going to curl call this whole URL with that version number that we've just formatted correctly. If I hit that, we'll see that we actually got a very similar version. In fact, it's the exact same as what I had originally. However, they do list it as something that you should check, because there could be version differences in your version that still applies to the version of Chromedriver that may be slightly different. So if it's the same, that's great. If it's not, that's great. As long as you get this back, we now know that this is what is going to be set as our Chromedriver version. So we can go ahead and copy all of this stuff. We're going to copy this. So now that we have all of this copied, we're going to paste it in for this Chrome version. Make sure it's all on one line. There we go. And the last thing we need to do in order to be able to set this as a variable in our script, we actually want to grab all of this again, hit the parentheses, make sure that it's surrounded in parentheses, and then at the very start, we're going to hit this $sign. And that's going to be able to set all of this, whatever comes out of all of those commands, it's going to be set to Chrome version so that we can then use it later in the script. With that, we are ready to move on to the next step. Just to kind of ground ourselves back in our steps for what needs to happen next is we've essentially eliminated this version here, so we know that we want this .60 version for my specific install. Yours will probably be different by the time you see this. If we were doing this manually, we would have found this page with this correct version number, and then we're going to have to choose which file is correct for our system. So since I am on a Mac, I'm going to grab the link for the Mac, but go ahead and find the file that makes sense for you, for whatever type of Mac you're on, or if you're on Linux, Windows, etc. You're going to go ahead, you can right click and copy link address. And we're going to be able to use this in our script. So if we head back over to our script, I'm going to paste that in there, and we're going to format this up just a little bit. But the first thing I want to do is actually to grab the file name itself. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to set this as a variable, because you will see in just a second, we're going to use this later to clean up our directory so it's even more automated, which is pretty sweet. So what I'm going to do is right above here, I'm just going to set another variable. I'm just going to call it zip file name. Oops. And I'm going to set that equal to this last little bit of the URL that we just copied. And that way we're going to be able to use this so that we can say, hey, get rid of this later after it's been unzipped, so that we can just clean it up and not have to worry about empty zip files cluttering up our file system. Keep that in its own variable. And then we're going to move on to our final curl call, which is going to download the actual Chromedriver to our system. All right, so the first thing that we want to do is we can see that the version number is actually hard coded into our URL. Now, we just went through all of that trouble to cut up our version number. So let's get rid of this and make this so that it doesn't have to be hard coded, and we can just have the computer constantly remember what this number should be, because it's going to change all the time. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to go back up here, copy the Chrome version variable. Oops. Then I'm going to go back into this slash here, and I'm going to hit the $sign because I want to actually use the variable that we've set, and I'm going to paste in Chrome version. So now whenever the script runs, it's actually going to replace Chrome version with whatever that string of numbers the version actually is. That way it's now hands off. We don't have to worry about remembering what the version was, and we don't even need to know what version it is. This is all going to be taken care of for us automatically. We're just going to put this all in quotes now so that we don't forget about it later. So now we've got our URL kind of formatted and ready to be put into our curl call. The command to download a file is actually very similar. We're going to use curl like we just did before. We're going to use a special flag though. It's going to be -o, lowercase o. And then we're going to specify where we want to download this file to. What I'm going to do is I actually like to keep my Chromedriver in the same place as my scripts. This is my scripts folder. So I have all of my scripts that I use for Python and Selenium all right here, so that it's just all kind of packaged and ready to go. And so since all of these are using this Chromedriver right here, this is my old version. And so what I want to do is I'm just going to keep my shell script here inside of this scripts folder, and I'm also going to keep the Chromedriver here in the same folder. So that's a bit of how I'm structuring this script. So you're going to want to make some adjustments if you don't want it in the same folder. However, since I do want it in the same folder, I'm going to say, hey, look, I want it to be right here, right where I'm at. That's what the / means. So in this current directory. And then we're going to just grab the zip file name that we saved a little bit earlier with the $, zip file name. So now this curl call is saying, hey, I want to go download something. I'm going to put it right here in this very same directory, and it's going to be called whatever it's supposed to be called, which is this file name right here. And then this is the link that we want to go to in order to download this file. The first thing I want to do is actually test this out just to make sure that we've got everything working correctly. Feel free to do this as well. I'm going to copy all of this. However, you are going to run into an error if you just copy this straight in. So what I'm going to do is change this. I'm going to copy this one more time and get rid of the variable because we don't have that actually saved on our system. There's no reason to. And so I'm going to change that, and then we're going to run this just to see if it's going to download correctly. So if I hit enter, oh, we can see we have got the Chromedriver zip file already for us to go, which is awesome. So we know that that part is working. So I'm going to save. The only thing left really is to unzip and then clean up the rest of this, this directory. We don't want to have the zip file, of course, later. So we're going to do those two things, and we're going to be pretty much ready to go with the script. The hard part with unzipping is that you have to type unzip. It's really actually pretty sweet. So we type unzip. We're going to do that -o again. And then we're just going to pass right in that zip file name that we have saved because we want it to open, obviously, the zip file that we just downloaded. And this is the line that's going to get that for you. If for some reason you are not able to run this command, maybe unzip is not on your system, I do have a link for that in my blog post, you can go ahead and install Unzip on your system, and that should help you get past that, if that is the case. On my Mac, it's been totally fine. I was able to use this right out of the gate. I didn't have to install anything. All right, so we are on the home stretch right now. We have unzipped it on this line. Now we're just going to get rid of that folder so we don't have the zip file hanging around for us and cluttering up our file system. So we're just going to use RM just like we would for getting rid of any other file from the terminal. And let's pass in that zip file name one more time. The final step that we need to make sure that we do is in our terminal, we want to make sure that the permissions are ready for us to be able to run this shell script. So if you go into your terminal again, type in chmod for change mode. We're going to say +X, and then we're going to type in the get latest chromedriver.sh. That's my name for this shell script, and gonna hit enter. So now it should be an executable file so that we can actually run this on our machine. In order to run this shell script now, we're gonna say in this current directory, I'm gonna start typing get latest and hit tab to autofill, of course, and I'm gonna hit enter. And it looks like, I don't know if you're able to see that, but we downloaded the zip file. It's already gone because it's been updated. So now let's test it out and see if this new Chromedriver is the correct version. We're going to import Selenium, of course, and the WebDriver, and then I'm going to start up a driver. Moment of truth. And guess what? We now have a Chrome window that is being automated by our Python script. We are good to go now. There is one more thing that we can do to make sure that this script runs smoothly from now on. First though, if this script is going to save you some time, please hit the like button to let me know. Sometimes Apple can quarantine some of these versions. For example, I have an old version that always has a quarantine warning. I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. So I've got this Chromedriver 2, and so if I were to go back here and change this to Chromedriver 2, I will get this lovely error. Looks like this. So if you are getting an error that looks something like this, we're going to go ahead and add the cleanup to that script just so that we don't have to worry about this error anymore. In order to get rid of this error, we're going to have to use this line anyway. So if I were using this manually and I got that error, I would have to type this into the terminal anyway. So I'm just going to add this to the end of the script. Feel free to leave it out if you're at all concerned about security or for whatever reason you want to make sure that you have more control over this. But if you want to automate this, then we can just add the xattr, and that's XATTR -D, and then com.apple.quarantine, and then we're going to hit a space and Chromedriver, since that's going to be the name of the file, which is right here. It would be Chromedriver 2 in my case, but since we're always going to be downloading and overwriting everything, that's what these O flags are for, it's going to overwrite whatever's there. So we're not going to end up with a Chromedriver version 2. So we can just go ahead and call it good with this last line. Hopefully that shaves off a couple of minutes from your day if you are like me and you use Selenium or some other software that uses Chromedriver. If you're not feeling super comfortable with the terminal just yet, go ahead and check out this playlist for a terminal quick reference guide.